It's now 5 o'clock. I will call the board workshop to order. Please let the record show that we have 6 trustees in attendance, and this meeting has been duly called, and notice of the meeting is duly posted for time and manner required by law. Now we have 7 trustees present. Our first item on our agenda will be our open forum. If there are any individuals that would like to sign up to speak specifically, okay. Moving on to the discussion for the plan of the district growth. And I'm going to read a statement before we get started tonight. So tonight's workshop meeting is the most recent in a long line of meetings both the district's administration and the school board have hosted to discuss plans for growth within the district and to receive feedback from the public regarding these plans. This fall, the district's administration hosted 4 meetings at Global High School, the administration building, and the Fine Arts Center on November the 2nd, November the 4th, November the 11th, and November 16th. At these meetings, the public was invited to raise questions and make comments regarding the potential addition of a second comprehensive high school, the likely necessary reconfiguration of secondary campuses, and the addition of new elementary schools. As we began the spring semester, the board conducted its first public workshop on January the 6th, 2021, to discuss the district's demographic report and plan to address growth. As we opened that board meeting, I informed the audience, and I quote, "This is going to be like an interactive workshop. At any time you have a question or comment, raise your hand and speak as we go through. You don't have to wait. We're not going to make this formal. We are going to make this interactive, and it's going to be very, very informal. So as we move along, feel free. If you have any questions, comments, opinions, or whatnot, you're more than welcome to say what you need to say," unquote. Near the close of the board's public workshop, Dr. Kane discussed the scheduling of additional public workshop meetings to discuss the district's plan to address growth, with the next one scheduled for this evening, January the 19th. In discussing the scheduling of a 2-week break between our first public workshop and this one, Dr. Kane stated to the board, and I quote, "I wanted you to have time to digest information, ask questions, and go out in the community. I know this board is very good about going out in the community and saying, 'What do you think? Can you support this?'" Unquote. So here we are tonight. I believe the board has had ample time to consider this district's demographic report and the plan to address growth. During this meeting, the same rules will apply as before. This is intended to be an informal, interactive workshop. If you have any questions or comment, please do not hesitate to immediately raise your concern. We may ask you to approach the microphone so members of the public watching from home can hear your question or comment. But I assure you, everyone who wants to be heard this evening will be heard. So again, if there's any time someone wants to speak, please raise your hand. We'll have you step forward to the microphone. You don't have to wait till we end and or change subjects. So moving forward. Now, our next item on the agenda will be the discussion of the plan to address the district's future growth.
Yes, sir. Because of the 2 weeks, not only did you have time to get input, we had time to get input, and Sorry, thank you. In the 2 weeks since we've had that meeting, you've had time to get input, and we've had time to get input, and we have looked at our plan again and again and again. So based on that input, there's a few tweaks, and Mr. Calden is going to explain those tweaks and the rationale behind each one.
Good evening, board. One of the first tweaks that we looked into was in regards to that second elementary. So last time we talked about 2 elementaries, and we talked about opening them in succession of each other, one year and one the following year. Upon some feedback and further looking into it, it just makes sense to have them both ready in time for the 22-23 school year. That also gives us that extra cushion in case the demographic numbers are below what we actually experience. If it turns out that we really don't need that second elementary, we can delay the actual opening of it to 23-24. But having it in place, having it ready to go, and in that Saddlebrook neighborhood would really help the district as we contemplate this growth going forward. So that was one big change that we put on the revised list here. Another one was making sure that we reiterated we would like to look at increasing our capacity at Little Chiefs Academy. We know that we've got currently 80-something, 85, 88 students over there. That's all our license with the state will allow. We know we have a waiting list that's probably that same length, if not longer. So we would like to add some more spots because we know that that really is a plus and a perk that our staff gets to enjoy. But in addition, to make that happen, we have to look at where the pre-K classrooms that are currently over there would go. So one thing that we'd be looking at would be returning pre-K, or not returning, housing pre-K classrooms at every elementary campus. So that would be a shift from what we've done, and we've traditionally had a campus that has pre-K, or maybe two campuses that has pre-K. But with the zoning that's already out there for elementaries, we would like to look at putting pre-K classrooms at the zoned elementary campuses, so you would have pre-K through fifth grade within the 10 proposed 12 elementary campuses throughout the district.
In addition, we would have to do that because when you look at making room for the second high school and moving that around, there are a lot of people who are housed there, including the DAEP, that needs to be relocated next year so we can start making those changes. And so there's, I think Ms. Mott said there's 19. Are we doing okay? My light's on. No, we're good. Oh, there's 19 pre-Ks that we relocate. Chances are we can't move all of those to campuses. We may have one here and one there. Marvin may have 6 or 7 because they do have more room, but Marvin will be filled next year with our pre-K kids. We may still have some extra. So all of that is because of this growth and just having to deal with the fact that we're going to have more kids than we have seats for. So it's going to be a crowded year. We're looking for options and ways to make that happen. So as soon as the bond issue passes, we will start working and try to get the 2 elementaries built in a year. Hancock, our previous boards who thought ahead actually designed the Hancock building so you could add on to it while kids are there. Coleman, it looks like we're going to be able to do the same thing, because we have got to relieve the pressure at Waxahachie High School. There are just so many students. So in 1 year, we're planning on doing all of that so that the next year, Saddlebrook would be open, elementary number 12 would be open, high school number 2 would be open. May not do anything about the transportation facility next year because so many other things are going on. So we may hold off on that just because of our, but then the miscellaneous campus renovations, those are our oldest campuses. This summer, I know maintenance spent a lot of money at Dunaway. It looks great, but it is an older campus and we need to make certain that they couldn't do everything. Mm-hmm. And so we've asked those 4 campuses to get with their parent group and teachers excuse me, and say, if you were to be allotted $500,000 from this bond, how would you spend it? So it is the preference of the campus how it would be spent, and they would also be doing the oversight to let everybody know this is what we asked for, this is what was built, or changed, or added on to.
Mr. Colin, going back to building the 2 elementary schools and opening them at the same time,
Yes, sir.
what's the anticipated cost savings in doing 2 at the same time?
Honestly, I really don't know. I've reached out to the architect, try to get an idea of what those savings might be. He was working on it and contacting a contractor to kind of get an idea, a realistic, real-world idea. Haven't heard back at this time. When I do hear back, I'll happily share that with you.
But there is a cost savings.
It's my understanding, yes, sir.
And the numbers that are projected here, they don't anticipate, they don't factor in those cost savings.
No, sir. These numbers right here, realistically, worst case individual scenario, these are not bundled together, built at the same time. These are just kind of, at the time that we asked about it, fourth quarter of last year, this is what construction costs would have been, assuming a little bit on the high end per square foot, just kind of give us a little bit of a cushion.
Okay.
And just so BLK doesn't get a bad impression in your mind, in the last, 4 weeks, we keep calling them, how much would it cost to do the gym at the new high school? How much would it, so it's not that they're not working, it's just that we probably ask them more questions in trying to finalize this, because they don't want to just throw out a number.
Well, and it's real easy to ask, how much would it cost?
Right.
It's really hard when you think about all of the trades that go into that and start trying to get from them what materials cost are, what labor costs are, what premiums may be out there because of the size or the lack of size of a project. So there is a lot of work that goes into trying to get an accurate estimate of what we think something would cost. But all that to say, these numbers, they really are probably 3 months old at this point, but it still is going to hold true at this point.
And I'm sure they include the $1 million hardening aspect you talked about at the last meeting?
Yes, sir. So the 2018 building codes are what you're referring to. And yes, these the new constructions would include those storm shelter areas or hardened structured areas.
Mr. Rogers, even in the gym, we need an additional gym at Coleman. No matter how small it is, there has to be a storm structure, which added significantly to the cost. So anything we build that is a standalone building, you have to add those costs. And so, yes, that has increased everything significantly due to these new regulations.
Mr. Colden,
Yes, ma'am.
from what I understand, we're going to put pre-K on each of the elementary campuses as we build them. Is that the plan?
As we start going forward, yes, ma'am. As we build an elementary, we'd like to have pre-K through 5 on those elementary campuses.
Okay. So right now, our pre-K students are all students that are Title I students, are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And so those campuses won't necessarily be a socioeconomically disadvantaged campus. So will they go there pre-K and then go
So
to
right
their
now,
home
they're,
campus, or how will that work?
I'm sorry for the interruption. Right now, there are about 6 qualifiers to be a pre-K student.
Okay.
One of them is qualify for free or reduced lunches.
Right.
The district also does have the option of letting staff, if seats are available, enjoy the pre-K. All that to say that your description of it is generally accurate, yes, ma'am, but not all of them are free and reduced income eligible.
Okay.
So there could be some pre-K spots open at other campuses that are not just at the free and reduced campuses.
Okay.
And as we look at the zonings, it may not make sense.
Right.
Let's just pick a campus. Wyoming doesn't have a zone. So students that, well, bad example because it doesn't have a zone. Let's say Shackleford. If we look down and there's only 8 kids that would qualify for pre-K or want to attend pre-K, it may not make sense to have a pre-K at Shackleford. We may need to look to combine it with a Wedgeworth or a Felty or a Simpson, assuming the numbers would work out. But just because we are saying we want pre-K at every campus doesn't mean every campus immediately is going to house a pre-K. That's where we would like to get to, but we need to make sure that the
Right.
campus has room and that it works.
Okay.
But that would be our goal, Ms. Krieger. If possible, we would send a pre-K kid to the school that they will go to, because that would be the best choice. And as our demographics change, what percentage, the percent of kids who want to go to pre-K may change as the demographics change and move. But it would be nice if it worked out that way.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
What's a good number or estimate to date of how many pre-K kids we have? Does anybody know for sure?
I think it's somewhere around 170. Now, I'm just full disclosure, I haven't looked at those numbers in probably 3 months, but I think it's somewhere in that 170, let's call it 200 tops right now.
Well, some of those in that number we're looking at were some of the special ed.
Yes,
So that was
would
about
include
4
your early
classes of
enrollees
special
and your
ed?
PPCDs.
Yeah. But that was the number, if you remember, Ms. Darnader, that our demographer said we were going to get the big increase. I don't know how he knew that.
But I didn't understand his reasoning when we're building homes that don't, unless they're teachers' kids.
I think he was going,
Every previous year, we've been at that higher number. We had the greatest effect this year with COVID going down. And pre-K is the number
Right.
one grade level that got hit the hardest
Yeah.
by COVID concerns. So I think the demographer's just expecting a return to normal.
And that's, I saw that when I was studying the numbers that the previous year it had been around the same as the
yeah,
So,
yeah, pre-K and kindergarten, those are the two hardest.
Ms. Krieger, it's your
Pre-K
vote.
because there's not a
getting way back.
predecessor year, and then K because not everybody goes through pre-K with us, so.
Dr. Kane, did you clarify with the demographer that what our intentions are is to absorb pre-K into the elementaries? Because that will affect the numbers.
Well, actually, the most important thing he does is how many kids and when. At that time, we didn't have this information. We hadn't gotten to this point, and so the idea of having to move CNI and DAEP is actually what caused this. So our sub-demographer, it just moves those numbers around because it's the same number of kids, but we didn't say we were going, at that time.
I did reach out to Trent to get, right now, students that are enrolled with us, what zone would they be in? We have that. The problem is, that's not good after this year, because that pre-K is that 1 year, and we don't, like I say, we don't have a, come sign up your 3-year-old, because they may be in pre-K next year. So it's a little bit of a moving target, but we do have a general idea right now of what zone, how many kids would be in pre-K in each zone. But realistically, we got that about 2.5 hours ago, so there hadn't been a lot of digesting.
And that's what Ms. Mott is working on. Where do we have space? Because the pre-K bring their children. And like Ms. Kriegel said, our first choice is, where do you live? We'd like to put you at that school. Were we able this year, whenever we put so many back on the 2 campuses, to pretty well put them either in their zone or near their zone?
Students in the Marvin zone attend pre-K at Marvin. Then I combined North Side, Belty, and Simpson, I believe, and put them all at North Side. And then everybody else went to Turner. And he is correct. It's about 180 pre-K students currently on 3 different campuses. So Turner, North Side, and Marvin's about 180. We were at about 230 last year pre-COVID. So that was the big decrease that we saw. We did gear up this year. We tried to put 3 pre-K sections at Marvin, 3 at Northside. Those, I think we have 2 at Marvin currently and just 1 at Northside. The numbers just did not come through this year like we expected. I do expect them to return to pre-COVID numbers, so somewhere around 230, 240 next year as they come in.
Anyone else? So what kind of feedback did everyone get from the last 2 weeks on this proposal? Surely everyone had at least a phone call or an email or a conversation with
I had that one
someone.
question if we plan to expand pre-K, and that's addressed tonight, so I hope that person.
Pre-K or Little Chief?
Was it Little Chiefs? Yeah, I'll have to double check.
But it's yes to both. So
I think
whatever.
I
Now that I
reached
think
out-
about it, I don't know why I asked it. It's yes to
I reached out
both.
to you about that.
Oh, okay. I remember that. Yes.
There was one other thing she asked. That'll come to me in a minute. But yeah, I had a couple of questions, but she was satisfied with the answer that Dr. Kane gave me.
Ms. Timmerman, anything?
Everyone that I talked to were very positive about each part of it, even the new facility for transportation. You can just go by there and see the needs, so it was very positive.
Darnett, anything else?
The main concern I have is from those of us that have junior high kids. My daughter and some of her friends are like, okay, so what's going to make me want to go to that second high school? That's their, they think,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
It is unusual.
They're like, oh, man, we got the new one, and
right.
then,
Well, it'll be up to us to get with our architects and make certain that it's hard to tell that that's not a really nice new place to. And there's other things that we need to do because it is unusual. Usually, you have a high school like we had, and you move to the new high school.
Right.
And so kids go to the new high school. So this will be different, but we will, it's just like this, the gyms we're looking at, and part of that, how much do we have for? 20 million is remodeling, like that brown floor probably will last forever, but it'll be one we would take out because it dates the building. And a facade at the front, it really doesn't take that much to update a lot of those things. And so, yes, that's what part of that 20 million is for.
McCutcheon?
Yeah, some of the comments I got were in regards to the 2 elementary schools, which we've looked at for a lot of us on the board the last 2 or 3 years. And we've actually looked at doing 2 at one time, and it didn't pass. But the demography report shows the future lots available for home builds and whatnot. And although the DFW to be number 14, that's still pretty high in regards to the potential growth, and the number that we have available is at the top out of those 14, or very close to it. And so just reiterating again, the amount of homes that are coming in, and I see it daily with developments and whatnot, it's I think people are starting to understand that it's coming, and we need to be ready. Simpson just went online, and it's already way, I don't want to say overfull, but it's a lot.
Well, we thought it was going to be what? Did we think?
30.
And how many do we have today?
504 as of Friday.
Yes.
And that's in one semester.
So when you relay that message to people, I think they understand that we need to be proactive as opposed to reactive.
And once we get past COVID, which hopefully will be next year, I think that's where that explosive growth is going to happen.
Mr. Schofield?
Most of the feedback I've gotten is probably what y'all have gotten. You hadn't mentioned that nobody wants it to change and everybody wants to stay the way it is. And my answer to that is it can't. Unless somebody here wants to go buy up all these lots and start farming, which would be fine with me. Call me, I'll come help. It's not going to happen. And when you lay the nuts and bolts out of it and let them look at it, most of the people I've talked to have gotten it. There's not a lot of excitement about a second high school, but when you explain the inner workings of it and how it comes together, I mean, people get it. It's just changing. But I do think that the feedback I've gotten has been positive, how the bond is laid out, where you can see it. There's no magical pot of money that you vote for and you have to guess where it goes. So you know where it is. So it is what it is at the end of the day. That's how most of my conversations have ended. And we just got to plan. We got to plan for it. It's our job to plan for it.
Members of the audience, anyone come forward and speak? I know we got. She spoke earlier. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Kim. Didn't I know she spoke earlier? Was there anything else you wanted to add? I'm sorry.
Well, I had a question about the old Coleman building, about the plan for $20 million. Because as we addressed last time, we have a definite problem putting the high school gym in. And one idea that I had for basically the same money.
Turn your microphone.
One idea that I had for basically the same money, according to what I had been told, is to build a coliseum that could be between Coleman and the football stadium, between what's now Coleman, and share it with the present high school, because we have a problem with gymnasium space, and that's just an idea. But when I talked with Dr. Kane about the gymnasium the other day, basically it would cost about the same amount of money to do that as to build additional gymnasium space onto the interior of the building.
To build one on the outside, is
Well, yeah, to
yes.
build in that,
Not to build a
build in the
coliseum.
green space.
Right. In fact, actually, that was one of the things we had BLK work on, because when you say coliseum, I'm thinking big enough for 4 high schools or even in 2 high schools, but I'm thinking lots of concrete and just a lot of facilities, bathrooms, seating, everything. So if we look at a competition gym addition, this new storm area is what's killing us, okay? just if we did a competition gym, not that is 9,809,000. So let's say 9,809,000.
For one gym.
And just for clarity, that's a 4A gym. That's
4A gym.
seating roughly, a little bit less than 1,000 people. Because the expectation on a 4A gym is with 1,200 enrolled students, you're going to have 1,000 or less coming to those competitions.
Okay.
And if we did the practice gym, which is the new storm shelter area, engineering, testing, building permit, fixtures, furniture, equipment, and technology, it's $5,388,000. So, and I agree with you, when we were there the other day, we have got to have another gym. I think this practice gym, what did we say, the competition gym there holds 8,000? 1,500, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We were doing the 1,500, big gym. 1,500.
The one that's currently at Coleman will hold 1,500? Because, what I remember is that it gets confusing, y'all. When it was the high
1,800.
school.
Just call it J.W. Williams.
Anybody
Anybody that's been around here long enough is J.W. Williams.
J.W. Williams holds 1,500, is that what you're saying?
Actually, I told you, now I remember this. The number we were using the other day was 1,800 that I got from Coach Reed. So 15 to 18. 18 would be crowded. 15 is big crowd, but a little bit elbow room.
Okay, and so we're planning on making the new high school a 4A school, is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right, because,
And that would make Waxahachie High it would be a very large 4A, and Waxahachie High would be a very large 5A.
okay, and let's see, and of course, the numbers shift every 2 years when the realignment. Okay, because when we talked about it, when we were at the new high school's gym, you said that a Coliseum could be built for $4 to $5 million, and so that's the number I was going with at that time. that you
Well, and
guys-
I think at that point, that's kind of what we both anticipated, that we could do one. But then in talking with the architect, they say a practice gym with enough seats for nobody, because it's a practice/PE gym, is going to be roughly the $5 million that we were thinking the other day for a competition gym. So honestly, I think a Coliseum for roughly 3,000 to 5,000 people, it's going to be every bit of that 20 million, if not more. Probably, just because of the concrete involved. Yes, ma'am.
Well, we were guessing. When I met you there, I didn't know that was going to be the question, and I think we were just guessing.
Well, yeah, and I'm part of that too, because when we redid Turner Gym over at Turner Pre-K, that was about $1.5 million. So my brain went to, it can't be more than $5 million. I was wrong real fast. It was double that to have a competition gym.
It's just we have to address in order to have a high school there, we have to address the issue of gymnasium space, because that's how the board, Ms. Timmerman, you probably know, how many years ago was what is now Global built? Do you remember what year? 1999.
Mr. Phillips, you'd know the answer to that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you built it.
1999 to 2001.
Okay, all right. But when it was built as the gym for the high school, because it was attached to the freshman center. So are we going to also, on the Hancock building, see, let's not get confused, on the Hancock building that's going to be Coleman, will we have to build additional gym space on it? Because it doesn't have.
Correct, it's a junior high.
Right.
It will be a junior high. And actually, when you look at the plans that were left, there is a wing for athletics, a wing for academics, and a wing for fine arts. So that was considered when we came up to the renovations of Hancock, going from Global High School and changed from ninth grade center to a junior high. Mm-hmm. So we should have, that was something we looked at. So we should have, going from high school to junior high, what this will do, building this practice gym at a 4A high school, we would have the competition gym, a brand new practice gym, and the other practice gym that's there that has no seating or little seating?
It's not relevant.
All right.
It's not big enough to really have any kind of.
But it takes up for the stuff we use the gyms for. You just,
Dance, fee, things like that.
and kids can practice in there.
That is just, it's
Right.
not regulation for any kind of a basketball game or.
The main focus, I want to make sure we stay on this bond, this is a need bond. There's not anything on there that we want,
Right.
that we need, and I want to make sure that we keep that the focus.
No, and Mr. Autry, I totally agree with you. It's just that when we were told 5 million and I had been told 5 million before.
Okay, it would have helped if
I
before
got
we went
confused
over
on it.
there, I had never heard the Coliseum before, or
Right.
I would have called an architect ahead.
It's
So when
okay.
you
It's
said,
okay.
let's look at the gym, and you
Dr.
said how much
Dr. Kane,
Coliseum,
Dr. Kane, that's what you told me back when we went to the new gym at the high school. That's the number.
when did we go to the new gym at the high school?
It's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
As a board, we've never talked about really.
No, and it wasn't.
These dollars, there's not enough money for.
Right, and I get it. It's fine. It's fine. I didn't know that it was
Because-
going to be that much money. I'll explain it to you later. It's fine.
Well,
But
that's
anyway.
not fine with me, because it makes it sound like that
That's
I have been misleading you.
No, and it was just,
But we didn't go to the high school.
no, not now. Not now. But I have a memory. It's okay. It's fine. It's over. It's done. I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay. One other question. So we're going to move global into the back part of what is going to be high school number 2.
It could be where DAEP is. It could be where curriculum is. It could be that if the board decides, let's go ahead and keep global high school as global high school on a global high school at high school number 2, and go ahead and start an early college high school at Waxahachie High, then that would make it smaller. And then we also need to make the decision, is global going to be a school within a school or a school like beside a school? And so we have, but in any case, it will be dictated by the numbers. And we've already let Mr. Lynch know, and actually with all of our transfer kids, to know that transfers are changing because of this growth that we're having. Now, everyone will be grandfathered.
Right.
And if you've got a sibling, as long as you're still in that school, the sibling is grandfathered too, because we're not really trying to cut kids out, but we do need to get a little better handle on it.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm a visual. So we're not going to cut out siblings from going to global high school, is that what you're saying?
If, from the outside, transfer, if you're a senior and your sister's a freshman, that freshman gets to go. Now, if you graduate and there is a gap,
Right,
you don't then get to start up again.
Okay.
Let's say the freshman and a 7th grader.
right, I understand.
No, freshman and 9th grader, yes.
But we will grandfather everybody
Yes.
that's in the schools, at global high school?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And then so global would be that minus transfers, or it'd be kind of like Wildman, Wildman starts out at kindergarten as just us. Well, next year it'll be kindergarten in 1, and then the next year K1 and 2. Global this year won't be significantly less because it's just going to be 9th grade that's not there. Now, if we decide to bring a proposal to the board that we do an early college high school at both schools, that will make what you have in mind as global at the new high school probably half again small.
Okay. And when will we be making those decisions?
Once the board says, this is the bond proposal we're taking, then that gives us the go-ahead to say, okay, let's get down to more of, like, Northside, Shack, Dunaway, and Wildman have been asked for specifics. When we go outside, we want to be able to say to the voter, if you vote for this $500,000, this is exactly what we're going to do at each campus. So we can get to more specifics as to, is it going to be the competition gym? Is it going to be a practice gym? What are we going to do? So that's when we start doing our marching orders. But up until now, there's been so many, this might be on the bond issue. It's been, that would be a very broad project. once the board says this is where we're going, we can be more specific about where on the land, where at Waxahachie High are we putting that elementary school. More detail to the board about here's what Coleman will look like. Hancock's pretty easy because they've already laid out where it's going to be. A little bit more specifics to that. The renovation at WHS, because we've got to get everything that's WHS off of Lumpkin and what is now Coleman and get it moved there. So it'll be standalone, self-contained, and Coleman/High School number 2 will have all the area that they can have that belongs to them. And then the miscellaneous and purchase of land. Okay, so then we would just be getting more detailed specifics as we move forward, because once that bond issue passes, to make elementary 11 and 12 open on this day, to have Coleman ready, to have Hancock ready, we have got to start the Monday after the bond election turning dirt. So that's why we've been working so hard with the architect to have so many things ready, so we're not in that beginning planning stage. I think Ms. Mott, well, you went on the trip with Ms. Mott and others to pick out what the 11 and 12 would look like. So we've been working in details on those. We don't have everything fleshed out, but once this bond issue is called by the board, we will start doing that with the expectation that we need to be totally and completely ready.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Mr. Calden, have you had conversations with the architect to make sure that $20 million will be enough at Coleman Junior High to become a comprehensive high school number 2? I mean, are we comfortable with that number?
So at this point, there haven't been a whole lot of conversations with the architect on what exactly, because there isn't a what exactly to give with them or to get with them on. We know that there needs to be a gymnasium over there, so we can earmark about $5 million or so for that gymnasium. Everything past that, we need to get some feedback from the campus as to what they would like to see. If it's removal of the brick floor, then it's removal of brick floor, and we'll go at getting pricing for that and go from there. If it's some updates to the exterior, we can look at, paint's one thing, and putting up some sort of entry or facade would be something completely different. So at this point, no, sir, that 20 million is not fully fleshed out. There's not hard and fast specifics on what exactly that's going to be. We just know that some money needs to be put into Coleman to make it that high school number 2.
Well, and Mr. President, as you said, this is a living project. We think we know how many kids are going to be here. We think we know how many will be housed at a high school. We think we know how many are going to live in the zone we mark off for high school number 2. But if unexpectedly, like Ms. Starnader was telling me in the story, someone says, oh, we're going to build 100 houses there, that's going to affect, do we need to add on to that? What do we need to do? And Ms. Kriegel, I left out the last part, which was the original part of your question about the global. We would, Ms. Harris, Mr. Lynch, Dr. Averett, Ms. Abady, and Dr. Holt would come up with a proposal of what would be the best. Here's the positives and negatives for keeping early high school together one more year or how many years. And then here's the positives and negatives of go ahead and open the second one, knowing we're staring high school number 3 down the road, not that far. So that would have to be sooner rather than later, because all the space at Global that we're not using would have to consider it. So that would be one of the first things on Dr. Averett's list.
Questions from the audience, comments, anyone? No? Board? Go ahead, Ms. Starnader.
I just want to comment, I reiterate that I like the fact that it's a comprehensive package, it's not, there's details about what's included, and there's kind of a what's in it for me for lots of different people in the community, especially like with the renovations to those 4 campuses and that sort of thing. So it's good to see Northside,
They're happy.
They're definitely overdue for some help, so.
Can I just ask one other thing before
Go
we're
ahead,
done?
we're
Or
not done.
just kind of get it on the record for everybody to see as we talk about spending, $127 million more or less. Basically, how many seats are we adding to our district for kids coming in? We can count We can count, I'm just saying it so people know, I pretty much already know, because you're adding 2 elementaries and you're using a high school that we already have and another building we already have. And you break it down, it's a huge cost savings versus going and building multiple new buildings. And I think it's important for everybody to kind of understand how many seats you're adding in our total capacity. And so each elementary is,
A large 4A is what, 1,200?
yeah, 12, so you're adding,
You're adding roughly 2,000 seats.
yeah, that's about what I was thinking.
We are, the 2 elementaries have a core of 800, but we're building them for 650.
Yeah, okay.
And then if we have to add on, we can add easily to those 2 and Wedge? No, Wedge is at 800.
Wedge is 800.
Is that the only, oh, and,
So you're going to be a little over 2,000.
yeah, and Max is 2 stories, so it's hard to build
Yeah.
onto that.
Have to be more than 2,000.
Yeah, you're going to be, you're about, in my mind, I had right at 2,500 ballpark.
So that high school right now, you got 900 kids in it, you're going to have 1,200, so it's really only a net of 300. And then across the street, again, the capacity is there for about 650. If you're going to make it about 1,100, there's 500 kids. So you assume 600 at each elementary, 500 at what is the Hancock building where Global is now. You know, my 2,000 may be a little short as we actually talk through it, but that was off fly.
It's close,
So-
and it buys us a lot of time before you have to do something else,
Yes, sir.
in a relatively speaking, because if not, you're going to be full in 30 minutes. You know.
Well, and it takes so long to build these things, to pass a
Right.
bond issue.
Exactly, bond,
Get it drawn out,
engineering.
build it, and they're still coming.
And we have the obligation to use the space we have, which is what we're doing. We're utilizing the existing space first, especially at the secondary level, before you start asking for money for something else, because eventually we're going to be sitting here and asking for money for another high school. If we look at the numbers, but, you know, just,
Yes, sir.
it's coming.
We will build out the projection is 36 to 38,000.
Right. So it's coming, but it just so the public can see, we're using the existing resources first before we're trying to go do something different.
Well, next year, the elementaries will be overflowing. I'm sorry.
State your name and address for the record, please.
You don't know him?
I do know him, but not everybody else might.
Jason
stranger in
Bankhead,
town.
1349 North Creek Circle. So with the 20 set aside for Coleman becoming the second high school, so I was just thinking CTE, what's in existence there? How, like, is it going to be able to offer what's that going to look like? Because obviously I don't think you can duplicate what the current one has. I just didn't know the plan for that.
A lot of
You go.
the CT stuff is still there. Dustin Zinnecker and Dr. Payne can speak better to that. There's
Go
gonna be
ahead.
Some of the programs and let them jump in will have to be duplicated because you need to do it both. Some programs, you know, it'd be neat to have some specific programs at certain campuses, but that's part of the reason for using that building is not having to reinvent the wheel and spend your dollars on something else.
Right.
There's a bunch of that still good. They
So,
can give you
like,
better
we will
details.
probably not have another culinary, but what if we had an HVAC? I mean, there's a lot of things that, like,
Auto body,
Yeah.
there's auto body
Right.
shops set up there that have to be used.
Okay, I didn't know how much of that may have been, you know, in the changeover to it being junior high, had been utilized for other things, so, okay.
Also, what we're thinking right now is that if a child can provide their own transportation, and let's say they're in the high school number 2 zone, and they would like to take culinary, they would be allowed to move. Now, if they ever come, they're not going to do this. If they come back,
Right.
I mean, it's a one-way ticket coming back either way. So they would be allowed, and you don't necessarily have to choose that in your freshman year. You may not decide till you're a sophomore that you want to take culinary or cosmetology.
So it'll be some type of choice with.
Right, but there's some basic core classes. Mr. Ben, did I see Mr. Bendeker come in? There you are. Have you been thinking of maybe some classes that we could offer at the high school number 2 that would be attractive and different? Yes. I'm good. I'm on. Oh,
I don't know that I have many different courses than what we've got currently at the high school right now, but I think we've got some options where we could take what we have there and kind of modify some of the things. Our cosmetology program, we wouldn't necessarily need to duplicate that, but we could offer a barbering or esthetician program over there that would be, you know, we've still got cosmetology at both high schools. So if a student chooses to go one route, they could go to WHS and the other high school, whatever that one ends up being they could take that program over there. There is still some auto body stuff in that shop there. There's a lot of stuff that would need to be replaced, equipment refurbished and stuff like that, but a lot of the facilities are still there. I don't know, I've gone through there a couple of times. A lot of the stuff's been kind of scavenged and taken out, and a lot of the stuff was taken over to the new high school when it was built. So we need to go back through and just assess kind of the direction of the CTE program across the district. But I think we could take some of the same programs and have a variation of them at the new space.
And then when an opportunity comes along, like the HVAC grant we went for, kind of describe what that was going to do.
We were trying to partner that and turn it into a dual credit program to expand our construction pathway. So we're actually expanding it at the high school this next year, adding a masonry program, and like to take the HV pathway. We've talked with TSTC, and they didn't really want to play with that variation that we had there. So we talked with another school about doing the same thing and offering it. So they'd still take the principal's level construction classes and then branch out into an HVAC program the junior and senior year. So plumbing, electrical, add those courses on there.
Describe that EMT course that you told me about that day.
So we've had a partnership with Navarro. We've sent students over to Navarro for the EMT program, and if we could bring our own program in, there's a lot of school districts that have an in-house EMT, and so it's the back of an ambulance is in the classroom, so the kids get to go in and have that simulated environment every day where they can go in there and they can practice things. It's set up just like if they were to go and hop into the back of an ambulance and go on a ride along with EMTs, but we could do that training in the classroom there, and you could partner that with some of the other health science programs we've got in the district too. So.
And Mr. Binnicker, we actually hired him from another district, but he told me the story about the ambulance would back up and the kids were told that it was a car wreck, and so they're ready to deal with the kid with the car wreck. Well, all of a sudden, as they get in there, the guy goes into cardiac arrest, and they weren't told that happened. And so what do you do?
Yeah,
Can you save this guy?
Yeah, really putting kids in that place. So, I mean, it's different when you're sitting in the classroom and you've got a science lab and you've got tables, but when you've got an ambulance that you can jump into the back of or pull a patient out of and do the same things, it changes the scenario a little bit for kids. It gets it more real for them.
All options.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Bankhead?
Makes you want to sign up for the class, doesn't it? So, Mr. President, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I have another idea.
What?
And it's been tossed around
For CTE?
over the years. ROTC.
Oh,
or a similar
ROTC?
type.
Do you know that I still have letters that were sent that, I think it was Air Force offered us one? Was it Air Force? Yes, there's still information. Of course, it wouldn't be good now, but yes, that would be, I think if either campus would get enough interest in ROTC that, yes, or if it was only at one school. I've never had an Air Force one. I've had Army and I've had Navy, but I've never had Air Force. But no, that's always a popular program. It really is. There's kids, just like there are kids who want to be in CTE and nothing else. There's kids who want to be a chef and nothing else. There's kids who want to go through ROTC and they just, that's their pick, keeps them in school. So yes.
Dr. Kane, or Mr. Autry, may I say something? When we discussed the gym situation the other day, we were talking like numbers, and that was my, when I was talking about the Coliseum, Dr. Kane and I and Mr. Coleman were talking about like numbers, the same numbers, so that's why I did not want to spend $9 million on the Coliseum. It's just if it were saying numbers. So I just wanted to reiterate that.
So I guess the big question is, do we want to have another one of these workshops? Or are we good until our meeting on February the 9th?
Because if you don't, what we would do is take this, and that's, of course, we would ask you to call a bond election, but we would start working on the things that you're, asking us. I mean, we would go ahead and start working on answering these questions. Mr. Binnicker, Dr. Averett, Ms. Mott, I mean, we would go to work. We would be getting the bond proposal itself together, the bond presentations. We need to work with the PAC. I mean, there needs to be a PAC. So we would go ahead and start doing that. Or if you would like to have another board workshop, we can do that. But unless you ask us to change this tonight, this is what we would be bringing back.
I'm asking feedback.
I think we've moved forward with what we've got. We've got behind the ball before, and it's tough to catch up. These are all needs, and, you know, there's some wish list items that got thrown out tonight a little bit, but I think everything that's on the table now is, there's no doubt it's stuff that we need. And the longer we prolong moving forward with getting the pack together, getting the word out as clear as can be on the growth and what we're going to need moving forward, then it's going to be tougher. So I think we just move forward.
I agree. I agree with Chad.
On this side?
I agree too. I think there's things we need that aren't on this list, and I know we have to prioritize.
There's several.
So I think from a conservative standpoint, no one can deny what we're trying to do here. I truly believe that.
Ms. Kriegel?
And also, someone might reiterate the change it's going to make to our tax base.
Thank you. Would you like to say it? Or you
No,
want me-
I'd like for you to.
Okay. Mr. Calden has worked with our tax attorney, tax counsel, tax advisor, everybody he knows, and has determined that if this bond issue passes at $127 million, there would not, NOT, be a tax increase because of our growth and because of 1,001 other calculations that they make and rules that we have. If the board calls this bond election, part of our presentation and script will be that this would not cause an increase in property taxes.
And I know this is going to be something that comes out of the negative rhetoric. Just to set the record straight, this does not max out our bond capacity either, am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So our bond capacity right now is based off of INS rate of 50 cents. Ours is 38.39 cents. It's really hard to do cents with cents on it, but 0.3839 cents per $100 in valuation. As Dr. Kane just said, this would not adjust that rate up any. It would still be 0.3839. So there still is capacity, 11 roughly cents that before you would max out that bonding capacity.
Okay. So everyone's fine with this being the last workshop? And calling the bond at our board meeting on February the 9th, I believe.
Actually, you'll be calling a board election and a bond election on February 8th.
Was it 8th or 9th? I can't remember. 8th, February 8th, okay. Anyone from the audience have anything they want to add? Okay. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Schofield, is there a second? Second by Mrs. Timmerman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, audience, for
Thank you, board.
participating tonight.
We'll get this ready, and we will have it ready, and we will start on the bond presentation. And this time, we will have a script, because I understand in the past, not having a script was a problem.